I'm happy to share my experience, nutrition, and fitness journey with those who are interested. Not surprisingly, I'll begin with a disclaimer. I'm not a professional trainer, nor a medical practitioner, nor a paid career expert on exercise or fitness. The regimen I follow is my own path. The approach is based on what I have read, studied, and experienced personally. My body's response to the conditioning, my health statistics, and my energy level at the age of 74 indicate that this approach works for me. Your approach may be entirely different. You may want a professional coach. It would be wise to get a physical from a competent physician before plunging into any exercise or dirt motorcycle regimen. There are professional gym protocols and strategies based on military training or personal experience. Organizations like MoveNet offer a glimpse into human anatomy and an alternative, naturalistic approach to fitness. What I am sharing is strictly my journey. I highly recommend that you know your physical condition before beginning any training program. This can involve a medical checkup, a stress test if recommended, and an assessment by a chiropractor or orthopedic doctor. Dirt motorcycling in particular is a strenuous, whole-body form of exercise with many physical challenges. I consider dirt motorcycling an athletic endeavor. Enough said. I'll begin with a distinction between road and dirt motorcycling. While either form of riding involves all 5 muscle groups, dirt riding is more demanding. Enduro, motocross, trials, and global travel certainly involve more cardio, muscle, and joint challenges than riding on the highway. Both kinds of riding require alertness, though. Any rider can benefit from exercise. I have always related to open desert and single-track riding as an athletic activity. I hold to that thought while conditioning and riding. After a time out from riding, I always work up gradually to the full demands of off-road or dual-sport highway riding. For any rider, good general health is essential. In addition to wrestling a bike in rough terrain, there are elements like the weather to consider. Protective riding gear includes face protection from the wind, dust, and debris. I use a full helmet with face shield for filming with live streaming audio. This deadens outside sound and offers the best protection for my face. For open desert enduro riding or motocross, an open face helmet and goggles do work, although windburn and sunburn will occur. Protect your face and especially your eyes. Corneal damage from silt, sand, dust, and debris must be avoided. Sweating is natural when we exert our bodies on a dirt motorcycle. Wind chill and speed will drop the temperature at your skin. In the summer heat, we sweat. Unless covered, naturally cooling sweat can evaporate too quickly, and this leads to dehydration. Hypothermia from winter wind chill and summer sunstroke are possible when riding a motorcycle. In cold, rain, sleet, or snow, many of us still ride. If not protected, we're at risk of frostbite or hypothermia. I stay dry in cold, rainy, or snowy weather. I stay covered in the summer with lightweight, breathable, long-sleeve riding shirts or a perforated jacket. This keeps sweat from evaporating too quickly, which can cause dehydration and put a rider at risk of sunstroke. In cold and snow, many of us still ride. Here, we're at risk of frostbite, especially fingers, or hypothermia. I had 3 early experiences that molded how I ride in cold and wet extremes. I'll share briefly. On December 23, 1972, I rode my BSA A65L Lightning from Carson City, Nevada to Southern California with a friend on a new Norton 750 Commando. Neither bike had a fairing or windscreen. Moving 70 miles per hour at an ambient temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit is like 23.5 degrees Fahrenheit at your body's surface. Preparing for the winter weather and severe wind chill in the Sierra Range, we bought new rubber suits from a surplus store. The suits broke the wind chill and allowed our body heat to keep us warm. Lined leather gloves of that era were intended to protect our hands and fingers. On the way down, the weather was unseasonably warm. At the White Mountains or Sierra Range, a warm break usually precedes a cold front or winter storm. We were able to camp overnight at the Looney, Nevada roadside rest. The elevation there is 4,480 feet. The ride home from Southern California on the 26th of December was entirely different. We rolled into Bishop, California in the afternoon and climbed the 6% Sherwin grade with temperatures dropping to freezing. Over Conway Summit, the sun set as we entered Bridgeport, California. Bridgeport is known to report the lowest overnight temperatures at the lower 48 states. Despite lined leather gloves, our fingers were numb. We bought plastic bags to put over the gloves and break the wind chill. In 25-degree freezing cold, our headlights panned the curves of Walker Canyon. The BSA's marginal headlight created a lot of shadows. I was cold and riding stiff as a board. The physiological stress led to seeing deer in the dancing shadows alongside the road. This is deer country, but there were no deer. Cold and fatigued, I was having a primal reaction to the series of road signs for deer crossings. We made it to Carson City without frostbitten fingers. On another BSA lightning trip, I rode up Spooner's Summit to Lake Tahoe in May. It began raining halfway up the grade on Highway 50. Rain turned to snow by this summit. The bike handled the wet pavement well, but I was wearing the wrong clothing. While the snow did not stick, I was wet and freezing cold. At the lake, it took an hour to warm thoroughly. 3 decades later, having gained some maturity and sense, I rode over Ebbets Pass, California's Highway 4, in October. My 1996 BMW K1100 LT had factory-heated grips, a full fairing, and an adjustable windscreen. The fairing captured heat from the thermostatically controlled, liquid-cooled inline 4 and directed it to my legs and torso. I wore my Motoport jacket and pants, a full-face helmet, and head gloves. By the top of Ebbets Pass, a light snow was falling on the narrow roadway. It wet the pavement but didn't stick. At that point, my body temperature was too hot, and I was breaking a sweat. I zipped my jacket down slightly to cool off. Today, whether in open desert summer heat or an eastern Sierra wind chill, I ride prepared. When physical exertion or challenges of extreme cold or desert heat become too much, many cruiser bike riders turn to trikes. In turn, dirt bike riders get a quad or a UTV side-by-side. From a 4-decade career around four-wheeling and nearly 6 decades of 4x4 recreational vehicles, I would much rather absorb off-road terrain standing on the foot pegs of an enduro motorcycle with hydraulically dampened front forks and Honda's Monoshock ProLink rear suspension. On a quad or UTV, the jarring goes through the seat directly into the spine of the operator. There are also lateral G-forces on a UTV or quad. For rough terrain, I prefer an enduro motorcycle to a UTV, quad, or a 4x4. If you're unsure of your overall condition for dealing with the environment or motorcycling, get a physical exam. Get a physical exam if you're considering a quad or a UTV. Make sure your spine is in good condition for motorcycling, UTVs, or riding a quad. I was always physically active and outdoor-oriented. I played team sports during high school. Barring knee, tendon, head, or spinal injuries, football or soccer can be good conditioning for dirt motorcycling. Knocked out on my feet once, my hard head kept me from going out completely. Although I never sustained a lasting injury, my wife Donna argues that the hard-headedness hasn't gone away yet. Football, soccer, tumbling, martial arts, wrestling, or any other whole-body sport is preparation for dirt motorcycle riding. A lifetime outdoor lifestyle included Sierra hiking, hunting, canoeing, and rowing. In the 60s and 70s, we had bona fide physical education and conditioning requirements at high schools and universities. After high school football and a decade away from sports, I trained at martial arts as a University of Oregon student. My work life began at the age of 14 with gas station jobs after school and during the summers through high school. My first summer job included 60-hour weeks that paid for the Allstate Cushman scooter and its many needs. I worked a summer at Twin Lakes Mono Village driving a post-war Chevrolet flatbed truck and hoisting 55-gallon drums of trash and fish entrails over the high sideboards. In my off time, I rowed a boat on the lake and hiked the Hoover Wilderness Trails to get in shape for football season. Earlier, my rite of passage with our Old Town canoe was to swamp the canoe in May at Lower Twin Lake. The task was to right the sunken craft from within frigid water. Busting split-rim truck and passenger tires, playing football and lifting trash cans were whole-body exercises. My first adult jobs were also automotive and truck related. I was a light and medium duty truck fleet mechanic responsible for a fleet of 22 vehicles. I worked 2 years as a construction laborer, all-weather outdoor work that toughened me further before an apprenticeship opened for a heavy equipment operator. My first operator's job in 1975 was at Winnemucca, Nevada on the bypass fill for Interstate 80. S.J. Groves out of Minneapolis had the contract, and I began as an oiler on a dragline before running a 14E motor grader and haul road tractor in -8 degrees Fahrenheit weather on the 10-hour, 6 days a week swing graveyard shift. The overtime was terrific at union scale. Late in November, a 30-mile-an-hour wind chill dropped the temperature to an equivalent -36 degrees Fahrenheit. It was challenging to sit on chilled metal all night. No cabs and no reversed engine fans with cowling like the Alaska pipeline operators enjoyed. I dressed sensibly for that one. We moved 1.3 million yards of earth on the I-80 bypass fill before the Nevada Department of Highways, today's NDOT, halted the job on the 12th of December. Wetted ground without compaction had frozen 18 inches deep during the brief weekly equipment repair layover. We were furloughed, and the project to that point had moved 1.3 million yards of earth. Only 300,000 yards remained. That got moved quickly when the project resumed in the spring of 1976. Sleeping in an unheated trailer, working in that degree of cold, I spent the winter of 1975-76 running around Carson City in a t-shirt. The natural homeostasis response had reset my body for extreme cold. Remote highway work in northern Nevada with months away from family encouraged our move to Eugene, Oregon at the end of 1976. We established Oregon residence and I enrolled at the University of Oregon, beginning with the fall term of 1977. My passion for motorcycles followed this lifestyle. In the early 70s, I had a string of BSA motorcycles. The first bike, a B44 or 441 Victor Specials Thumper, was followed by the Lightning A65L Twin and ultimately the A75R Rocket 3 Triple. By coincidence, each of these pre-owned bikes were 1969 drum brake models with breaker point ignitions. While working at construction, the Rocket 3 came along. I rented an industrial unit and ran an independent motorcycle repair shop at Carson City on the side. I worked on 60s and early 70s road and dirt bikes, specializing in pre-unit and unit British bikes. My shop was a Chrome Horse, coined from Bob Dylan's lyrics. When the state of Nevada acquiesced to the 55-mile-per-hour federal speed limit, I sold the Rocket 3 and began an unanticipated motorcycle hiatus that would carry for the next 2 decades. As a 28-year-old freshman at the University of Oregon with rugged outdoor and adult work life as my history, I took graduate student Jerry Nolan's physical conditioning class. Jerry was athletic and in his prime, but a rotator cuff injury limited his use of one arm. He shared the importance of protecting soft tissue. That insight has influenced my motorcycle riding. In the 70s, there were less than optimal surgical options. I then studied martial arts on campus under Sensei Robert Graves. An elective humanities course taught by a European soccer player introduced students to the concept of man the player. Professor Huizinga valued a physical life in sports. We studied how combative sport and its pageantry have historically served as tools for conflict avoidance and resolution. That theme certainly carries over to off-road and asphalt motorcycle competition. During the peak of the Cold War, the International 6 Days Trials, now the ISDE, brought together premier off-road motorcyclists from the West and Eastern Europe. Finding common ground around enduro motorcycle competition, they were able to crack open the Iron Curtain. Family activity during our residence at Westmoreland Married Student Housing included hikes, four-wheeling, steelhead fishing, and deer hunting. I drifted and rode the McKenzie River in a drift boat, staying physically fit all the while. I graduated from the University of Oregon just as BMW released the first Paris-Dakar R80 GS model. Seeing the new bike at the Eugene dealership showroom, I knew my days of motorcycling were not over. I was simply on a timeout. In 1982, while teaching automotive mechanics and welding at the San Diego Job Corps, I published my first article in Off-Road magazine. Appearing in the February 1983 issue, the article launched a 4-decade career at four-wheel drive and outdoor journalism, photography, book authorship, trail guiding, and consulting to vehicle manufacturers. My day job during the first years of riding included work as a line mechanic at a GMC truck dealership. That work was physical. In the spring of 1987, I went full-time into an automotive and four-wheel drive writing and photography career. Constantly on the go, I maintained gym memberships over the years and stayed fit and flexible, studying Choi Lee Fut martial arts when our youngest son Jacob began public school. Dirt motorcycle riding came back to life in 1988. Rick Simon had become the editor at Off-Road magazine. The founding editor of Dirt Bike magazine, Rick was known to the dirt bike community as Super Hunky. He brought his boundless energy and enthusiasm to off-road. I wrote extensively for the magazine, and our motorcycle and off-road interests meshed. My focus was 4x4 vehicles and off-pavement driving. Rick was a dirt motorcycle champion and seasoned moto journalist. For some reason, Rick had an unproven confidence in my ability to ride dirt bikes. We tested his belief by tossing a pair of KTM and Husqvarna Enduro motorcycles into his van and headed to the Mojave Desert. I dusted off the riding cobwebs and BSA Victor muscle memories. Rick held the AMA District 37 number 1 veteran class plate in 1984, 85, and 86. His dirt riding prowess, known throughout the desert racing community, would eventually rack up 1,600 dirt motorcycle and 4x4 races. I knew this would be an interesting day. Within the first 2 turns, it occurred to me that the only way to stay upright and make a showing was to follow Rick's moves as closely as possible. I took his line through desert sand washes, fast-track open desert washboard, and up steep, narrow single track that dead-ended on hilltops. We tackled everything in between. If ever there was a clear risk of high-siding, doing a cartwheel over the handlebars, or breaking a collarbone, this was it. Instead, I managed to keep the Husqvarna 250 on 2 wheels the entire day, staying close on Rick's tail and not making an ass of myself. Super Hunky was genuinely impressed. I was grateful that my motor coordination and muscle memories aligned that day. My enduro riding skill went to a new level, and I thank Rick for that enduring lesson in fast-paced, open desert motorcycling. From 1987 forward, I wrote extensively, including the best-selling Jeep Owner's Bible and 6 other Bentley Publishers books. My 4x4 career hit stride in the early 90s. I was active with the Tread Lightly program, serving as a media representative on the board of directors. With Tread Lightly, I was a 4x4 clinic trainer, partnering with Bill Burke from Four Wheeling America and Stu Jacobson from the Bureau of Land Management. We each came from physical outdoor backgrounds. Bill is a former 101st Airborne Specialist and Land Rover Camel Trophy competitor, Stu with years of BLM and Leave No Trace experience. My roles had extended to 4x4 truck and SUV consulting work and trail guiding, work that would ultimately include GM, Mercedes-Benz, Jeep, Subaru, Nissan, and Toyota. I was on the ground, running up and down remote trails while guiding in the Rockies, the Sierras Rubicon Trail, Moab, Glacier National Park, the Cascades, Sweetwater Range, and other venues. This work required staying in top physical condition. I acquired the Honda XR350R in the mid-90s and rode extensively with son Jacob at the remote Nevada desert. Our home base was south of Yarrington, and a favorite ride was Black Mountain in the Wasatch Range. We would ride up the steep mining road and stop near the top to cool the XR engines down and walk among the petroglyphs. Our riding style was a cross between open desert enduro and primitive single track, standing on the pegs and crawling at times in trials mode. Pulse rates up, we steadily honed our riding prowess and ease with riding in primitive, remote country. The bikes were always properly prepped for these challenges, and we were never stranded in a remote area. An overarching goal was safety and getting home without injuries or damaged bikes. Tread Lightly wanted me on the USA-UK team at the Land Rover Trek event in the fall of 1996. This mini camel competition would involve intensive competition at running, canoeing, ropes, dirt bicycling in Georgia, red clay, mud, four-wheeling, winching, bridge building, and other heavy lifting exercises. The cardio push was obvious. Sue Mead, Nick Dimbleby, and I trained for this event. I had recently taken 2 Geo 4x4 trackers over the Rubicon Trail as a publicity assignment for Chevrolet. I was thoroughly familiar with the trail and first drove it in 1967. Each trip involved a short wheelbase Jeep CJ, a Wrangler, or a Land Cruiser FJ40. These Geo SUVs required considerable coaxing to tackle the rock-strewn trail. I tugged a USA Venturecraft Sportsman trailer behind a lightly upgraded and accessorized lead tracker. We repeatedly used its worn winch and a high-lift jack to keep the stone stock second vehicle moving. Sleep eluded us, and I became the guide, camp cook, and motivator. A trip easily done in 8 hours with a properly equipped Jeep CJ or Wrangler instead ground on to 46 hours. We did it though, and Chevrolet earned bragging rights in a national ad campaign. On that venture, I vowed that any future trips over this notorious trail would be on the Honda XR350R or a similar Enduro motorcycle. At the time, an Enduro dirt bike could cover the Rubicon Trail in 2 to 3 hours. To train for the Land Rover Trek event, I started with my cardio baseline for guiding 4x4s and instructing clinics at high elevations. I needed to up my cardio game, as the stakes were high here. For the Land Rover Trek, I decided to use a polar heart rate monitor and practice interval training. The heart rate monitor was the smartest way forward. The fitness heart rate monitor was not widely used in the mid-90s. I wore the monitor around my chest directly at the heart line. My aim was to use the device like a tachometer. Redline was at top beats per minute in the zone. I was 47 years old and determined that 120 to 140 beats per minute would be a good zone for cardio fitness and gaining stamina. I would start each exercise set slowly, inching up to 110 beats per minute, then gradually work my way up to 140 beats. The monitor paid off. Without a monitor, many of us simply jump into training and find ourselves spiking our beats per minute and blood pressure. On that note, I always make sure that my blood pressure is normal before launching into an exercise regimen. Whether I'm doing resistance training or whole body exercise that will kick up the pulse rate, I want to know that my baseline resting heart rate and blood pressure are normal. What I discovered with the heart rate monitor, whether you use a chest band type or today's simpler wristband, is that most of us are likely to work out too hard when we're out of shape. This comes from lack of awareness around our cardio fitness. If we bust out of our beats per minute heart rate zone, the result is counterproductive. This leads to fatigue, stress to your cardiovascular system, and a longer training period. This hyperstress brings back memories of August football practices when out-of-shape teammates were hunched over and throwing up. Fortunately, I never joined them. I set 120 beats per minute as my first target. When not in top cardio condition, 120 beats per minute can come up quickly. I stayed at 120 beats per minute for 2 weeks, adjusting a power walking pace to hold that beats per minute rate for 30 minutes minimum and a 40-minute maximum. After 2 weeks, I noticed the healthy and predictable fact that it took short bursts of interval jogging to reach or hold the 120 BPM. I did just enough jogging or a light sprint to reach 120 BPM and intentionally plateau there. To hold that BPM without spiking required regulating my level of exertion. Now I kicked up to 130 to 140 BPM for a better cardio workout. If fatigued after a workout, I would drop to 130 beats per minute the next time. My stamina and recovery time improved steadily, far faster than pushing hard when not in condition. I allowed my exertion level to reach 140 BPM gradually. After a short period, I knew that 140 could be surpassed. At 47, in healthy cardio condition, I could have ceilinged at 150. Instead, I capped at 145 BPM. It was important to build stamina with an interval approach and fast recovery. The pattern was exertion, then recovery, exertion, then recovery, and so on. When I needed to interval jog or even sprint to hold 140 beats per minute, I knew my cardio fitness was where I wanted it. I could tolerate short exertion intervals at 145 beats per minute without issue. Most importantly, and always the end goal with any cardio workout or post-exertion monitoring, is my recovery time. Recovery time is a strong indicator of cardio fitness and normal heart rate function. I want a normal and acceptable heart rate within a minute. Clinically, this is called heart rate recovery, or HRR. The Cleveland Clinic, online website, and other sites like it have excellent information on heart rate recovery. The Cleveland Clinic emphasizes that your 10-second and 30-second recovery rates are often important as well. So after interval training, it took considerably more exertion to reach the 140 BPM heart rate. Once I knew my cardiovascular stamina had improved significantly, I ran a maximum heart rate test. At 47, my maximum heart rate should have been 175.1 beats per minute. A sprint to maximum heart rate clocked 197 BPM. At the time, the formula for maximum heart rate placed me at the level of a 31-year-old male. Some of today's charts would have me in my late 20s. Even better, I had a very normal heart rate recovery, or HRR. I was, and still am, thrilled that my heart leans toward a more youthful peak rate. However, I'll never take these laurels for granted. Staying in condition is the foundation for better heart health at any period in our life. The important element is staying fit. By doing so, I am respecting my heart's willingness to perform well. A reasonable indication of fitness is a quick recovery rate, or HRR, after physical exertion. This includes strenuous enduro motorcycle riding. With reasonably consistent conditioning and my stats up to age 74, I should not feel fatigued when training at a 120 to 130 beats per minute heart rate. I power walk our rough collie border collie mix for 30 to 40 minutes daily to reach this zone. Be aware though that everyone's heart is different. For some my age, 110 beats per minute or less may be the top of their training zone, especially when first starting a conditioning program. If you are uncertain about a safe regimen or beats per minute, consult with your healthcare specialist, a certified trainer, or a cardiologist. Consider a stress test, especially if your heart rate recovery, or HHR, is slow. Be careful though, a stress test can also be a stressor. Worth noting, I do not take any kind of medication. My heart rate and blood pressure figures are a true reflection of my overall physical condition. I'm not on statins for cholesterol. Aside from regular exercise, diet, nutrition, and body mass index or lean mass to fat ratio each play a role here. I also am a strong advocate of body awareness and breathwork meditation. My approach to nutrition and diet can be found in another video at the channel. Here, let me be clear. When a rider needs heart, blood pressure, or cholesterol medication to be healthy and alert, he or she should follow a physician or cardiologist's advice. High blood pressure can lead to stroke. High cholesterol can lead to artery and heart damage. Left unchecked, type 2 diabetes is devastating and life-threatening. Dirt motorcycle riding is a distinct form of conditioning. When the going gets rough, like balancing through rocks or bogging down in mud or sand, your bike becomes the ultimate exercise machine. Like a treadmill, stationary bicycle, stair-stepper, resistance training, weightlifting, or any other cardio workout, riding a dirt motorcycle in rough terrain or at speed can be a hard workout, regardless of age. Turning a 4-stroke enduro dual sport or ADV bike around on a steep, dead-end trail will spike your heart rate. Wrestling with a 240 to 360 pound enduro or dual sport motorcycle could be a handful. Add to that a bike without electric starting. Try kickstarting a bike on a precarious side slope. To cope with the stress and pressure at these moments takes conditioning. Breath rate picks up. Blood pressure and heart rate climb. Each must remain within norms. Know your resting heart rate and blood pressure. First thing in the morning, my resting heart rate is 53 to 55 beats per minute. When I'm working out regularly, I can still pull off a 110 to 116 systolic over 68 diastolic blood pressure reading, 120 over 68 otherwise. Blood pressure can be deceptive. We need to also know how our blood pressure spikes from exertion or stress, including emotional triggers. Anger is a good way to damage arteries in the heart muscle. High blood pressure can lead to a laundry list of maladies, including but not limited to stroke and heart disease. Exercise and nutrition play a key role in these life-threatening health issues. Know your health condition before beginning any kind of exertion. People stroke out or have heart attacks shoveling snow. Dragging a 550 to 600 pound ADV motorcycle out of a rocky creek bed in swift-running icy water is far more strenuous than shoveling snow. I stay aware of my overall health condition. I monitor my BP and pay attention to my HRR after exertion. If I were training for a local hare and hound motorcycle race or planned to do a longer solo race like the Best in the Desert Vegas to Reno race at any age, I would train with a heart rate monitor. There have been Baja motorcycle racers in their mid-70s. Clearly, they train. Up a steep rock waterfall canyon with a flooded engine, trying to kickstart a higher compression thumper is not the place to test your blood pressure and heart rate. Our vitals should be normal before we put ourselves in that situation. Age doesn't matter either. Today, 40-year-olds are having health issues, especially type 2 diabetes. There's an epidemic of obesity largely brought on by poor nutrition. My approach to nutrition and body mass index, or BMI, is available in another video at this channel. My lean mass to fat ratio is my target. Nutrition is an important, lifelong story for each of us. A less known issue for dirt, dual sport, and ADV motorcycle riders is hypoxia or altitude sickness. When I guided new 4x4 vehicle launches for manufacturers, I was watchful at higher elevations. At a ride and drive over Imogene Pass in four-wheel drive geo-trackers, a guest journalist thought he had the flu. It was mid-August, and certainly not flu season. The closer we got to the 13,114-foot summit, the more his symptoms looked like altitude sickness. His lips were blue or cyanotic, an indication of hypoxia. We hydrated him with water and descended the high pass. He was much better at 8,750 feet elevation in Telluride, but still headachy and somewhat disoriented. While the staff and other guests headed to lunch, I drove our ailing journalist down to Farmington, New Mexico. The option would have been a trip to the emergency room at Telluride for oxygen treatment. By Farmington, the journalist felt fine. We stayed at that elevation for a while, then drove to Durango and rejoined the group. A clear sign of hypoxia is dizziness, disorientation, and cyanotic or blue lips and other thin-skinned areas. Of course, with these symptoms, a heart or lung condition must be ruled out. Fortunately, I knew the journalist and his health history. He was suffering from a lack of adequate oxygen in his bloodstream. His body could not adjust to the abrupt, extreme altitude change. Had we stayed for days at a staged, lower elevation, he could have built up the necessary red blood cells and hemoglobin to carry more oxygen. Another factor, often overlooked, is hydration. Drinking plenty of water at higher elevations is crucial and can help stave off lightheadedness. For a four-wheel drive vehicle with a roll cage, there is less risk of getting injured while suffering altitude sickness. A disoriented motorcyclist, however, could lose balance and crash. Hikers and mountain bicyclists acclimate before they approach a high-altitude climb. When climbers attempt Mount Everest, they stage for a period at lower elevation base camps. A sea level resident can get hypoxia or altitude sickness as low as 5,000 to 8,000 feet. Some get altitude sickness in a pressurized airplane. Commercial aircraft usually pressurized to 8,000 feet. The body needs more oxygen-carrying red blood cells at a higher altitude. It takes days, sometimes weeks, for hemoglobin to adjust the body's oxygen level. Body size or conditioning make little difference with regard to who gets altitude sickness. For high elevation motorcycle riding, acclimatization is sometimes necessary. Altitude sickness can affect dirt or road riders. Know the signs. In a group, pay attention to others, their alertness, dizziness, and lip color. Drink plenty of water. If you're planning a global motorcycle trip or motorcycling in the Rocky Mountains, go to the CDC guidelines at their website online. There are clear measures you can take to prevent altitude sickness. Dirt motorcycle riding is physical conditioning. Dirt riding will build muscle and stamina. Like soccer, motocross or hard enduro works all 5 muscle groups and the cardiovascular system. These athletic pursuits benefit from joint and limb flexibility. Motocross, enduro, and trials riders practice regularly. If out of shape, I work up to speed gradually. I am selective about terrain and challenges when I'm out of shape. I slow my pace a bit, ride methodically, and stay mindful. I push harder as my muscle tone, cardio stamina, and reflexes improve. Stretching before riding and not overdoing it helps prevent sprains and pulls that can sideline us from riding. Just throwing a leg over a 37-inch saddle can be a challenge when you're out of shape. Riding or exercising with a bug or slight temperature is a good way to get hurt. We need plenty of rest and all of our faculties to ride well. When targeting areas of my body to exercise, I always begin with my core. Others see arms, upper body, and legs as the areas to isolate. Our core is critical for both spine and low back protection and also for balance. In the martial arts, we train from the core. All movement is from the core. All strength is from the core. I believe that the best preventive care for my back is a strong core and muscle wall along the spine. This helps us stay upright on the pegs, able to wrestle the bike's weight when necessary. Core strength helps prevent spine and hip injuries. Hip and shoulder protection is essential. Some of this is wearing the correct riding gear. Beyond this, I strengthen my shoulders with my pulley and cable home gym. There are several proven methods for strengthening shoulders. I do exercises that focus on the deltoids, upper biceps, trapezius, and pectoral muscles without straining or damaging a rotator cuff and soft tissue. Regardless of which exercise I choose, the weight starts out light, and I remain flexible. Pulleys and cables allow smoother movements. I establish a muscle movement pattern and accustom my arms, chest, shoulders, and upper back to tension before adding weight. I gradually add weight when there is clearly no soreness or sign that I'm still adjusting to lighter weights. This was my strategy with cardio training in the mid-90s. It follows to this day. Eventually, heavier weight is possible. When off exercise for a period, for any reason, I will resume my shoulder and rotator cuff exercises with lighter weights. The rotator is made up of muscle and tendons. Either can tear. Smooth movement without overloading is the best exercise for tendon and muscle joints. They must remain elastic and flexible. To improve and protect the rotator cuffs, soft tissue and tendons depend on strengthening the surrounding muscles while maintaining flexibility. Weaker muscles will not protect tendons. Overdeveloped muscles prevent proper flexion. I want strength and flexibility. That's what dirt motorcycling demands. This also applies to the knees and hips. Torn hip flexors, tendons, meniscus damage, or knee cartilage tears can end or sideline motorcycle riding. While knee replacement works for some, it's not a fix for everyone. Protecting your knees from injury and developing the muscles surrounding the knees is the best preventive. There are specific exercises that address this sensitive area. Specialized knee guards now provide superior knee and leg alignment. When in doubt about our knee condition, we need to see a reputable orthopedic specialist. I concentrate on avoiding soft tissue and cartilage damage, paying close attention to my knee strength and stability. Beyond my core and soft tissue concerns, which include knees, ankles, Achilles tendons, hips, and elbows, there are thigh, hamstring, calf, arm, back, and neck muscles. None of these can be overlooked. Soft tissue can be protected by our choice of riding gear. To me, riding gear is not a fashion statement. I wear safe and well-designed gear for each kind of riding I do. As always, we get what we pay for. Quality riding gear should be in every motorcycle budget. Safety ratings matter. I may not need a $600 helmet, but I certainly need a helmet that meets the safety requirements for protecting my brain and brainstem. I've had enough head knocks from football and combative sports, thanks. Motorcycling requires some specialized conditioning. Kickstarting is not a natural movement. It requires leg muscles, knee stability strength, and ankle strength. Kickback can injure soft tissue in the ankle or even the knee. A good practice on kickstart thumper bikes is to understand how to use the compression release lever with the kickstart pedal to inch the piston just past TDC on its compression stroke before kicking through. The piston should not recoil with this approach. Ligaments and tendons need care. I stretch and warm up before getting on the bike, especially in cool or freezing weather. Classic arm pump and forearm muscles can result from overtraining or an overly tense grip. The actual cause of arm pump is restricted blood flow and too little oxygen in the muscle tissue. I have never suffered full-blown oxygen starvation arm pump while riding. This is different than minor cramping. My heavy mechanical and construction work created strong forearms, grip, and tendons. I still bust big tires well. Apparently, at least to this point, my blood flow is also adequate when exerting my forearm muscles. Today, my exercise aim focuses on a balance between handlebar control and adequate blood flow. This also means strong hand, wrist, and forearm tendons. Isometric exercises are good for tendons. Riding posture plays a role. Carpal tunnel can result from poorly adjusted handlebars or bad riding posture. I unload my hand and forearm grip when practical, still maintaining handlebar control. Strength and flexibility are each important. Ligaments and tendons need elasticity and muscle support to keep from tearing. My workout routine stays focused on motorcycle riding. I want flexibility plus strength. I want the right body lean mass to fat ratio. Interval training works best for me as it is very close to the changing activity levels common with open desert enduro riding. For me, real-world dirt motorcycle riding is an interval exercise. Even rough single track is seldom a continuous outpour of energy. There are always tame sections of a trail for cardio and muscle recovery. Work has always been exercise too. I enjoy mechanical work. Wrenching, heavy lifting of engines and transmissions, wrestling cylinder heads, aligning truck axle housings, and installing hefty transmissions and gear assemblies have each been part of my career work. I use lifts and hoists when practical and possible, but this is still physical work. Bending, crawling, lifting, pulling, and pushing weight around are all part of mechanical work. Tire busting, when done correctly, can build lower back strength. Done wrong, it can cause severe and debilitating back injury. The wheel and tire assemblies on my Ram truck weigh 102 pounds each. I change and balance my tires in-house. I lift wheel assemblies on and off the tire changer and balancer. Though no longer a paid job, I still do wheel alignment work and suspension work, including lift kit installations. I still use a hand shovel to move dirt, rock, and snow. Post-hole digging is also good conditioning. Any movement under load that does not cause injury makes sense. It's all physical work. Lifting correctly is no different than an ADV rider tugging a heavy motorcycle out of red clay mud. Dirt motorcycling keeps me motivated and physically in the game. An all-terrain bicycle can be especially useful. It keeps my sense of balance honed. The movements and body interaction are very similar to dirt motorcycles, including when to apply power and when not to apply power. This is cardio exercise, especially on rough and varied terrain. I rode consistently for years until I carelessly overdid it, pedaling up a very steep hill and injured a patellar tendon. Pain and inflammation required icing for a period of time. I healed quickly and naturally, a good sign. Chronic inflammation should be a wake-up call. We live in a culture that tries to normalize inflammation and the need for anti-inflammatory drugs, whether over-the-counter or prescribed. This masks symptoms when the underlying cause can be poor or inappropriate nutrition. I discuss my dietary journey and nutrition in a separate video. All-terrain bicycle riding is still an option that I approach with more prudence now. The bicycle is available if I need a bigger cardio push. We have a rough collie border collie mix and he needs a different kind of activity. Rusty gets power walked every day. I enjoy walking distances with him at a brisk pace. I am not a fan of jogging on asphalt. Too many friends and relatives have worn out knees and hips from excessive jogging. Power walking or riding my older specialized ATV bicycle with suspension has far less impact on joints, as long as stronger leg muscles are not tearing up tendons and ligaments. There is a place for gym memberships if convenient. For me, gyms have been on and off the table. Today, I prefer home gym equipment that eliminates a trip to a private gym or public gym class. No fuel spent and no extra time spent. Many prefer a gym for the structure. Conditioning to safely ride my off-road motorcycle is enough incentive, discipline, and structure for me. During the pandemic stay-at-home, many of us turned to home exercise equipment. Since then, we've stayed at home and improved our equipment. We purchased a sink mill, cable and pulley home gym with weights and pulleys. The weight stack is plenty at 148 pounds. The Amazon seller had it on discount. Including tax, the total was $530 US, the cost of many annual gym memberships. For building strength, toning, and range of motion, this machine can handle the upper body, legs, and core. I supplement my core work with an inexpensive aero trainer that allows a natural, isometric approach to core sit-ups, plank, and other toning. It uses your own body weight. We have a decent treadmill without frills for cardio and low-impact jogging. I also have an under-desk treadmill to offset the lengthy time I spend at the computer. My monitor is 49 inches for video editing, and I use a VersaDesk riser to lift the monitor's center line to eye level. I can stand and work, walk slowly and work, or pick up the pace and work. Despite my deadlines and productivity demands, what I don't do is sit endlessly in a desk chair. Isotonic, isometric, and isokinetic exercises each have their place. Some of these exercises can mimic motorcycle demands. Cardio resilience and stamina are crucial. MotoGP riders 1/3 my age often carry 150 beats per minute heart rate through most of a race, with only a short distance per lap for any recovery. This applies to motocross and stadium endurocross riders as well. The good news is that pushing this hard under muscle exertion means there's a place to dissipate the adrenaline. This is similar to the natural fight or flight response. Spiking adrenaline repeatedly without a physical outlet is a quick route to illness and organ damage. I strive to keep my weight in check. For me, a low set point has always been easier to maintain. I'm 5 feet 11 and can weigh from 155 to 185. 185 means a lot more exertion to keep my lean mass to fat ratio in line. 155 is low for me and not conducive to a robust immune response or strength advantage. In construction work at the age of 23 to 26, 165 to 168 worked well. Working as a laborer on the other end of a shovel or moving heavy objects for 13 hours a day, I had no more than 8% body fat. Maturing, I found a reasonable set point at 168 to 172 pounds. I'm not a big fan of BMI, or body mass index. It's very inaccurate. In simple terms, I want no more than 19 to 21% body fat at my age. 19% would quicken my metabolism and be on the lean side. We do need some body fat for a healthy immune response. BMI is your height and weight proportion, a somewhat arbitrary way to look at weight. Waist measurement is okay, but can also vary widely between people. Lean mass to fat percentages are much more specific. That's the measurement I want to follow. My video on nutrition takes into account issues like eating good fat versus bad fat, nutrient-dense foods versus hollow calories. For the purpose of adjusting my weight and exercise level, I'm mainly concerned about overall body fat. There are very lean people loading up their arteries with plaque. and there are people with body fat on the high side of the BMI chart for their age who have no issues with plaque. Nutrition is a large player in that dynamic. Nutrition is not the only factor, though. Some people are predisposed to cardiovascular trouble. Genetics and body type do play a role for both exercise and nutrition. Some have an easier time building muscle. In my own experience, I place importance on maintaining a lower body weight set point. Many who muscle build or want to be bigger are actually not suited for carrying the additional weight. Their bone structure might be better for a lower body weight. Fortunately, motorcycle riding is not like being a football lineman. In racing, it's actually advantageous to be lighter and strong. My bone structure, height, and muscle layers seem to work best around a peak of 172 pounds. I have strived for that weight since the age of 30. Total weight is not the whole picture, though. Out of shape, my lean mass to fat ratio varies like anyone else's. My enduro motorcycle fitness goal this winter is 18% body fat at a weight of 172. That's 30.96 pounds of fat to 141.04 pounds of lean mass. In real-world terms, testing one's lean mass to fat ratio can involve expensive tests. I take a self-awareness approach that's close enough. First off, I don't want visceral white fat in the space between my organs. That's the unhealthy lurking fat that appears as a beer gut. It's firm, dangerous, and associated with heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Any fat I do have should be subcutaneous. This is the soft, movable fat that we can feel between our skin and the outer abdominal wall. If my weight goal is in check, I target getting rid of subcutaneous fat. At my set point of 172 pounds, if I have too much subcutaneous fat, I need to build more muscle while staying at 172 pounds. Muscle tissue is denser than fat tissue. Building muscle while maintaining a fixed body weight will always result in lowering the percentage of body fat. In recent years, a claimed fix for weight loss has been stimulating good brown fat production. Brown fat is adipose tissue that keeps us warm when we're cold. Brown fat stores energy, responds to cold weather, and helps burn calories. According to many studies, brown fat can aid in burning visceral fat too. Some studies indicate that white visceral fat can be converted to good brown fat. While science is weighing possible cures for an obesity epidemic, I'm simply focused on setting a weight limit that's easier to maintain. Enough exercise and muscle building at a fixed weight of 172 pounds will burn off subcutaneous white fat. In the end, I'll have the right amount of muscle when I meet my goal of 18% or less body fat. Aside from weight and lean mass, I keep flexibility in mind when training and conditioning. If overdone, resistance training and weightlifting can be detrimental. When weight training, avoid overdeveloping a particular set of muscles and ignoring others. The goal with dirt motorcycling is whole body balance and quicker reflexes. This involves fluid body movement. Many have turned to naturalistic workouts like MoveNat. The MoveNat philosophy and physical training through natural movement can be beneficial and aligns with the endless movement and challenges of motorcycling. Stretching exercises also help. My wife is a certified yoga instructor and comments when I'm too rigid, not standing properly, or if I bend awkwardly. Motorcycling means jostling, jarring, and abrupt movements. We need strength, flexibility, and optimal range of motion to meet each challenge. Youth motocross riders can benefit from tumbling, gymnastics, and soccer that teach how to land properly. Barring injuries, playing football can be beneficial. Quick reflexes and spatial awareness are essential to dirt motorcycle riding. An example of flexibility is looking graceful when I'm mounting my Honda XR650R with its 37-inch saddle height. My other XR Hondas are similar. True enduro and ADV motorcycles need plenty of ground clearance and suspension travel, which means a taller saddle height. Every kind of exercise regimen, including motorcycle riding, demands proper hydration and rehydration. I always drink ample amounts of water. At the gym or a workout, in the desert, at high altitudes, or on a strenuous stretch of trail or open desert on an enduro motorcycle, staying hydrated is a necessity. At altitude, drinking water can relieve a headache, or even the onset of altitude sickness. When I worked at Camp Hale, Colorado on Mopar's Camp Jeep event, the flatlanders from sea level were getting headaches and dizziness. For many, this was readily offset by drinking an extra 1 to 1.5 liters of water each day. On the Rubicon Trail Geo-Tracker stunt, I drank a minimum of 3 quarts of water each day. A Camelback or similar water source makes sense while riding. I sip water throughout my rides. I expect my urine to be light in color and not dark, which is a clear sign of dehydration. While coffee may enhance your workouts, increase riding sharpness, and improve agility, like other diuretics, coffee is not a substitute for drinking water. When riding, I avoid diuretics with caffeine, including coffee, most soft drinks, and energy drinks. Beer is diuretic and not a substitute for water. I will drink coffee well before riding or at a longer break during a ride. I follow coffee with water to reduce risk of dehydration. After a workout or ride, once your pulse is back to normal, coffee can enhance or continue the workout burn. There's a place for coffee and caffeinated tea. Summer riding is a workout. A cool pack when highway riding makes sense. A Camelback is my go-to for off-road riding. Avoid stripping down or going sleeveless. If sweat evaporates too quickly, you can overheat. Sweat has a cooling effect. Cruiser bike riders have been known to dehydrate or even succumb to heat stroke while wearing just a vest. Be aware of heat stroke and dehydration symptoms. I wear a long-sleeve shirt year-round. Lightweight in the summer. Just enough shirt to prevent rapid sweat evaporation. I keep up my water intake. Any motorcycle riding means changing weather. Approach riding like outdoor exercise. Dress accordingly. Wear protective gear and be mindful of weather and climate changes. Physical conditioning and exercise are obvious parts of motorcycle riding fitness. There's another more subtle element of fitness: stress reduction. It's not healthy to spike our blood pressure from adrenaline overload. Riding a motorcycle is a proven stress reducer. So is Vipassana meditation and breathwork. In the mid-90s, after a decade of endless adrenaline-charged deadlines, my wife and I were considering some balance. We took our youngest son to a series of meditation workshops conducted by John Travis, a Spirit Rock teacher emeritus. John is the founder of Mountain Stream Meditation Center in Nevada City, California, and the workshops were at the west side of Washoe Valley, Nevada. Buddhist-influenced Vipassana meditation can also be an insight tool. The core of Vipassana meditation is simply following the breath. John is a gifted teacher. When I worked with the Rite of Passage program for 5 years, I began as an automotive technology and welding instructor and became the director of vocational training. I conducted secular, non-religious Vipassana meditation sessions on the lunch hour. The focus was breathwork. Connecting body and mind, practitioners become aware of the present moment. The parallels with motorcycle riding are clear. The safest, natural place to be while riding a motorcycle is in the present moment. Breathwork will lower blood pressure and resting heart rate. Meditators get a more objective view of anger and other emotions. If an anger management class does not get rid of road rage, Vipassana meditation may work. Vipassana meditation and motorcycle riding allow the present moment to unfold. When the riding ends, a breathwork meditation practice can bring us back to the present moment.